Hey everyone, what's up? Now why should you consider using a 2011 iMac in 2020? Let me show you. Now firstly, people would often think, oh, 2011 iMac, horrible old computer, don't really want to use that anymore. But if you're looking at getting a new iMac and you don't have the £1,300 to over £2,000 price tag that Apple asks for, then this could be a great way of saving some money while still having a perfect desktop to use as your daily driver. Now, when I say 2011 iMac, I don't necessarily mean that you have to go for that exact year, because those ones, they're good, but the only reason that I am using a 2011 iMac is that that's what I happen to have laying in the loft from an old, which was an old computer that my mum actually used to use. And I just decided to revive it. But if I were to recommend someone to go ahead and buy one outright on eBay, for example, secondhand, if you would like the newest software updates, you're going to have to go with a 2014 model, and those are slightly harder to upgrade, which I'll get into later on. So you can look at 2011, 2012, 2013, they just won't be updated to the latest software, but personally that has no issue for me, and you can find them from anywhere from £200 or even £150 up to about £300 to £400, which is so much cheaper than a new iMac, especially considering the upgrades as well. It's still not that bad of a price. Now, a few other incentives to actually look at an old Mac would be the fact that the screens, even the 2011 model has a 1080p Full HD screen, colours are very accurate and nice on it, you can even calibrate it. Obviously it's not up to the standards of the Retina MacBook Pros or especially the new 5K displays, but it's still very good compared to some older laptop displays from that era from the likes of Acer or HP. It also has great speakers, which is for some people an amazing thing. If you're not using external speakers like I am, for example, the ones built in are perfectly fine and very usable even for things such as video editing or gaming, because they do have a good amount of bass for a all-in-one computer. Now back to the reason that I recommend you do get a older than 2014 model is because of the fact that they are, instead of being very thin on the sides, they still look the same from the front. Instead of being very thin, they have a bit of a thicker body, and therefore it means that the screen is not glued down on these models, it's just magnetized. So you can pull it off with suction cups very easily, whereas the other one you have to order a special tool which cuts the adhesive down the side of the display, which is fine, it's doable, but it is a bit more of a hassle, and you will have to buy new adhesive, so that's an extra cost as well as the tools. So that's a decision you can make for yourself. Personally though, if I was to go ahead and actually do this myself by buying one on eBay, I would go with a newer model, definitely, because of the upgrade in speed and the longer time it would last. Although this 2011 model, I'm still sure it could last another probably about 4 to 5 years due to the fact of these other upgrades that I'll get into now. One of them being the SSD. So I have changed the hard drive, which was about a 500GB hard drive, for an SSD, which changed the speed immensely. And the reason it did that is because obviously the old hard drive was a 5,400 RPM one, unlike 7,200 RPM hard drives, which is what you find in most computers. So even those hard drives, the 7,200 RPM ones, you would consider as very slow loading up, booting the computer, loading up applications. Now you can imagine going down to a 5,400 RPM, it cuts down the speed even more. Now, Apple did that to save on the noise, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, because they want their computers to be very quiet, but it did slow it down. So by changing out to an SSD, the upgrade you get is huge. And personally, I had an old 960GB SanDisk SSD lying around, which I bought back for a deal a while back. And with that SSD, boot times have been cut from about 3 minutes down to often 20 to 30 seconds now, which is very good considering the fact that it's using a SATA 6 interface, I believe. On top of that, opening applications is smooth again, and because of that, it would be usable for years to come, as I said before, because now there's no moving parts in there, there's no parts that are really liable other than one I will get onto in a bit, and there's nothing stopping you from using this computer for a long time unless your needs change, such as needing to edit more than 1080p video. and 1080p video editing is possible in here using Final Cut Pro. I haven't tried Adobe for those people out there trying to use Premiere Pro, but on Final Cut Pro it's very smooth. Sometimes it lags out a bit, but you just have to let it load and there's no issues at all. So this is what I've been using to edit my videos for the past while, because it's actually nicer than using my laptop personally. Now, talking about a laptop, there's a reason that I actually decided, even though I was planning to get this MacBook Pro 13-inch 2015 model, which I've got 2 years ago now, secondhand again, which was a great buy. Let me know if you guys like me to make a video on that as well. I can do that, no problem. But the reason I actually decided to go ahead and take this out of the loft and start working on it is because even though the MacBook is faster in pretty much every way, so such as rendering and editing video, you could even do some 4K on that in Final Cut Pro, unlike the iMac, it's actually slower in general tasks such as swiping through the interface certain times when you're scrolling, and I believe that to be due to the dual core, because it does have 16GB of RAM, it does have a much faster SSD, screen is better, and the cooling is also another aspect that isn't as good, although both computers do get very hot and sometimes hit about 90 degrees, sometimes even close to 100, but that is just what you have to deal with Apple. So for most iMacs, the steps are going to be very simple. There are two things you need to do. First one, you're going to have to change out the hard drive for an SSD, which I have mentioned previously, the reasoning for that. That is very simple to do. There are many tutorials on how to do it for specific Macs on YouTube. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I can explain them, or even maybe make a video about it. Although, disclaimer here, you've got to be very careful when you're fully opening up the Mac, because on the inside, Apple do not put any shielding over the power supply. So if the capacitors or any parts of the power supply really you should not touch, because it could be very dangerous, or just any metal in that corner. It's usually top left once you go into the computer. And as long as you don't touch it, you'll be fine, but it could be deadly, and you should be very careful of it. And that was something that put me off for a while of actually fixing the Mac, but once I researched into it, I realised it's safe as long as you follow procedure and you learn as much as possible online. So I'm not liable for anything that happens when you do open this up. You just have to be very careful and do your own research. So other than changing out that hard drive, you do have to change the RAM too, and that is very easy on the older models that are thicker, so anything before 2014. You can, at the bottom of the Mac, you'll see under the Apple logo, there's a little bit that you unscrew and pop in some new RAM disks, and if you are not feeling comfortable switching out the hard drive, you could add in some RAM. That would be no problem for anyone, I would say. It's a very easy job, and most iMacs do come with 4GB of RAM that you'd find on eBay. And so realistically nowadays you're going to need at least 8, sometimes even 16. And personally I had some extra RAM sitting around from an old laptop, because this actually uses laptop RAM. So you could have a look around in your house, see if you have an old laptop somewhere, take out some of that RAM. If it's the same megahertz, so I think mine's 1666, I'll correct myself if I'm wrong here. And I just happened to have that laying around, 2 more sticks of 2GB, so I popped that in, no problem there. So for me this cost me nothing really. If you were to put your own SSD in, maybe you wouldn't want to invest in a 1TB or 900GB one like I have, and you could look at a 256GB one for about £40. The RAM could cost you around £20, so about a £60 upgrade, and you could find all of that on Amazon. And if you did need more storage, of course you can go external, and that would be perfectly fine for most use case scenarios. Now, the two things that you will need to be careful of if you are going to do this is look into the known issues with your Mac. So for example, on the 2011 Mac, the graphics card is known to go bad. Mine is okay for now, touch wood, but I would say just make sure you know what the issues are of your Mac and have a look into the prices if you were to need to replace them. So for example, the 2011, you can replace the graphics card, but it can be a bit hard to do. And the last thing, which isn't so bad, is that with Apple's hard drives, they have built-in temperature sensors, and Apple recognises those, and therefore it can understand how hot the hard drive is and how hard or slow to spin the fans. But when you install your new SSD or your new hard drive, for example, those, if they are not Apple branded ones, the temperature sensor won't match with the system, and Apple will run fans at maximum load the whole time, and it's very, very loud and just not usable. And so because of that, you're going to have to download this software called Mac Fan Control, and it basically is a software that will turn on whenever you turn your computer on, and you can set the settings to your own preferences. There's loads of articles online explaining what to do for each Mac, and basically you use software to control the fan speed of your Mac. And for me that has been no problem. It's free software and it's worked since the beginning of fixing this Mac. So there we are, guys. I hope you liked the video. It was a bit more of a complex, in a bit more detail, one I have done so far. And yeah, pretty much. So if you'd like to comment, subscribe, like the video, give any of your opinions, go ahead and do that, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.